stats say that they're averaging 29 wide open shots per game, which is way more than anybody else. What is it about them that makes it so tough to stay attached, and how do you guys kind of have to counter that?
Yeah, I'd like to know how many of those are in transition. So, they're obviously one of the fastest playing teams and do a great job of getting out in transition, forcing cross matches. But I think the other thing that they do is that they don't have a predictable spacing. So as they're starting to drive and kick and screen and move, you can lose sight of guys, and then you end up either putting 2 on a ball, 2 on a cutter, overhelp, and then you get those wide open shots. So I'd venture to say it's mixed between their transition, but also their ability to kind of play without a script on the offensive end, which creates some of that indecision and that communication. So, that's where the test comes in is, number one, kind of get back in transition initially, and then also in the half court, our individual defense has to be disciplined, our weak side defense has to be disciplined, reading how much we have to help and kind of where those guys that relocate are.
How comfortable are you guys playing up and down with them, or is it going to be key to kind of manage the pace that they want to play at and kind of slow the game down a little bit?
I think everything just depends on how the game is going. We're not going to just bring the game to a halt. We just got to take what the defense gives us, but I think you have to manage the margins. You have to manage the rebounding. You have to manage the turnovers. I think it starts with those two things.
And they allow the fewest three-point attempts in the league. What is it about their defense that limits the amount of threes teams get up, and how do you guys kind of react to that?
Oh, yeah, I do a good job of not shifting off of shooters, defending the ball, and then they got some rim protection with Turner down there. So, again, for us, it's always been about just take what the defense gives us, and that's the most important thing, is making sure our spacing's good, making sure our decision-making is good, and making sure we just make the right play, whether that's for a layup, an open shot, or a three, whatever it may be.
How much of this entire rest of the way is about you guys? You can focus on the opponent, watch all the film, but just what you do, how much of that is just you?
It's been a balance of both of that throughout the playoffs, where even in the first two series, I think it's both. I think you have to have an understanding of what your opponent has the ability to do. You have to take away their strengths. You have to know and anticipate their adjustments, and at the same time, you have to, here's what it looks like when we are at our best, and we have to fight to be at our best. We have to know, that they're here for a reason. They're a great team. They have been all year. If you take a look at the games we played against them, it's been a great test of, just the way that they play, and they put a ton of pressure on you. So I think it's a balance of both. That's how it's been really throughout the playoffs so far.
Joe, I'm sorry I couldn't hear Gary's question. I don't know. They have. We saw in this last game, Indy has this very high variance possibility. It's something that you've mentioned before as very difficult to defend. How do you approach a game where all of a sudden that you can tell that variance is happening? They're shooting really, really well. Is that, how does that impact you guys? How does that impact your game planning?
I think with a team like that, you have to just have a clear understanding of what types of shots you're willing to live with and which ones they're going to get, right? They're going to shoot, they're going to score, they're going to shoot. So I think it's managing the ones that you're willing to live with and being very clear at what you have to take away. Because with a team like this and the threats that they have and the way they play, you can't take away everything. But you can be very disciplined in the things that you want to take away. So I think it's focusing on that, and then I think it's focusing on, like every other team, the margins, the rebounding, the turnovers, rebounding on both ends of the floor, getting to the free throw line. I think those things are a way to help combat the variance. But again, every game's different. The variance can look in different ways, right? So you've seen the variance in the 5 games that we've played against each other work against each team and work for each team. So I think it's having an open mind to know that the way it happens in each game could be a little bit different.
Joe, there's the idea of survive and advance whenever it comes to tournament basketball, and you guys have just been so much more dominant than that. What's been most beneficial mentally, competitively, physically to the way you guys have played?
I think the guys have just done a good job, again, disciplined basketball, having an understanding of what wins. Kind of what Gary's question was about, like focusing on the opponent, having a level of respect for each opponent, knowing that you can lose at any time if you don't do X, Y, and Z. So having that balance, but also at the same time, here's where our strengths are, and this is where we have to leverage those. So I think it's just maintaining that balance and having an understanding. We're playing against a really good team that can beat anybody at any time. But here are our strengths, here's how we leverage those, and then here's how we can take advantage of our opponent.
You mentioned the regular season series. What can you take from that? There were 5 games, but only they only had Siakam in that fifth
Yeah,
one, and he was
yeah.
still pretty new.
Yeah, I mean, they still have a DNA in the way they play with the other guys. As much as it's about, they're just a balanced team. So, they have a couple stars, but I think their second unit guys and the other guys are just as important, if not more important, because of their ability to impact the game in different ways. The Neesmith, Toppin, McConnell, Nemhard, Shepard, Isaiah Jackson. So, they're just a well-balanced team where they have a bunch of guys that can impact the game in different ways. And so I think that's the most important thing, is having an understanding of their personnel and how they impact the game.
Joe, you talked about the practice yesterday and what you were looking for. Today, was there a little bit more of energy because knowing finally who you'd play when it comes to this team, or is it just business as usual?
Just business as usual. Yeah.
What kind of things does Kristaps able to do so far?
I have no idea, but I know he's working hard trying to come back, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's on the medical table. I haven't seen much of what he does on the court, but I know he's working really hard to come back as fast as he can. No, he didn't practice today. He's out there studying, learning in the film, doing everything he can to, come back as fast as he can.
Joe, every year there's always, in the conference finals, one of the kind of big stars in their prime leading their team. This is the first year in whoever knows how long where there isn't someone in their late 20s, early 30s leading a team. So how well prepared do you think JT and JB are for this moment, even though they're relatively early considering all the experience they've had in making these deep runs?
If you're asking how well our team is prepared to play against the Indiana Pacers, I think we've had a really good couple days of practice regardless of who we played, and I think our guys are really focused on what it takes to give ourselves the best chance to win, knowing that Indiana is a really good team, well-balanced, and they're dangerous. And so we've had a couple of good days of preparation, and I think our guys are ready to take on the challenge of playing against Indiana.
So do you think those kind of years of reps, failure, success, and these heat of the moment, does that really play that big of a factor into these kind of matchups, or is it really just
I don't think it plays. I don't think it plays a factor into this particular matchup. I think it plays a factor in general, right? I think the NBA is about timing, where it's not just about what Jalen and Jason have been through. It's really our whole team. I think when you have a team that has an opportunity to be successful, you're taking on the experiences and the journey of the DNA of that team, but also different players because you pull from different guys, right? So Drew's been through stuff, Al's been through stuff, Jason, Jalen been through stuff, Peyton, Sam, and Luke, our role, everybody's been through stuff. So I think when you have a roster of the connectivity that we have, it's because of the timing of each guy's experiences kind of aligned for this opportunity. So I don't think it's anything other than we have a group of guys that have been through a lot, good and bad, and anytime you're in a position, you want to use your successes and failures to learn from that and kind of apply them to the opportunities that you have, and I think that's the opportunity that we have.
Last question, Ivy.
Speaking of opportunity, Aaron Neesmith, you worked with him when he was here. Is this the player you envisioned when he first got here, and how important, what does he do for that group in Indy?
Yeah, he's a good player, good person.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.